Great. I found this nice nonsense T-shirt from in a Spanish shop. It's just like nonsense English. I don't even know what it says actually. It says something about some waves.
Something rhythm.
It says some waves rhythm.
All right, some waves rhythm. Okay.
Nonsense.
Sounds like a surfing T-shirt.
Surfing T-shirt. Some waves rhythm. Anyway, let's. Okay. Great. Hey. Onegaishimasu.
Onegaishimasu.
Okay. Great. We'll loosen up a little bit. Put some. Warmth in the body. So we'll just play with one thing with the hands, which is like this kind of tensioning thing. I just got my Christmas tree in this year. It's got this long pulsing light going on and off. So just play with this, which is like a slow pulling of the hand into tension as you do this, and then slowly releasing the tension. So actually you can do it bang, 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 like this. Do that same kind of thing as you'll this movement, just kind of slowly bring the hands into tension. So try and keep the shoulders loose, the elbows loose. Just kind of spreading out the hand. Fully tension, and then just kind of slowly release it back. Long, slow pulse. Even more slow. And the lights on is kind of random though, so it's now going like this. So we'll go to this one. It's going to catch my attention. Should pulse them. Try and keep the movement even, but the body will start to speed up as well because of the hands. So there's a nice quote from a sensei, I think it's from a sensei, not quite sure. But he talks about the mind, the hands reflecting the mind, or the hands being like a mirror for the mind, which is kind of interesting. And it's a kind of two-way mirror. Obviously, the mind affects the hands, and the hands affect the hands. We'll just slow it down. We'll just take it front and back. And we'll just bring in the hands again. So not with no tension in the arms or in the hands. Just play with keeping them up. And just rolling, so you kind of tension. Tension. Think about the playing with this one. Think about a bow. Basically, you're bowing the body forward, you're bowing the body back. So think about kind of opening up the bow as you do it. The spine's like a bow out and bow that way. So your tension in the front, the body, and your tension in the back. As you go forward, tension in the front as you go back, and the front, the back as you go forward. Just take it within a kind of comfortable range. And too far back. Also include the knees in as well, and the legs as you go both ways. Let the body kind of adjust. Great. Good. We'll do the side. So just feels like you're just reaching out. Just open up the sides of the body. Let the weight settle with your one foot. Just feel the other foot kind of go light. And the other arm also can go. You can drop it also, you can keep it out. Just feel there's a kind of tensioning happening across the body. One side and the other. if you're close enough, you might be able to actually reach the wall. If you can. Quite that one, no. In a way, just play with two ways of doing this. You can lead we'll lead with the hand and the body follows. And also the way back, you can kind of pull the hand back and the body will kind of settle. Or you can think about kind of the body kind of leading it, which is a bit of a slightly stranger move. It's actually going to go to the ground in a sense. And the more I go to the ground, the more the hand can kind of reach out. And then also on the way back, you want to feel that that ground's still there and you just draw the arm back up. So just play now, you've got the sides, but also just play with kind of reaching out, drawing it back. Reaching out, drawing it back. Yeah, I can lead with the hand. In this case, I imagine someone pulling me and I'm not really ready for it. I just get kind of pulled out and then the hand's going to pull the rest of the structure with it. Right? Now, ideally, you want to be kind of sinking and settling. So if someone pulls the hand out, not really going anywhere, but you just feel the tension out a little bit. Sink the weight down and goes back to this idea of like a kind of gesture which reaches out. What we were doing yesterday, like a point. I'm actually in the ground all the time. So as a kind of warm up, you can do this. Yeah, we'll bring this into rotation work as well now. So just playing with the hands and that kind of sense of just gesturing out. You can do it with both arms or both hands. Just do it with one. You play with palm up, palm down, palm out, arm high, arm low, reaching for the corners. Let's kind of explore different movements. And you can also obviously allow the hands to do different things so they can kind of split, they can go together, they can work totally opposite extremes of the balls. They're kind of balanced in a sense, they should feel kind of even. If I'm unbalanced, that's going to be very difficult to kind of allow the body to split in a sense. Nice. Just exploring. And we're doing this all in the system. This will be where we're doing our 𝘭𝘭𝑚𝑦 work actually, because that's where our 𝘭𝘭𝑚𝑦 is actually coming in. Or if you walk into a cupboard door, as happens in life, what do I do? I'm going to do something which is going to protect me. And it's going to be a kind of movement from the central axis, the central nervous system in response. And I try and ride it, like the response out. Great. And then just take that into kind of opening and closing of the body now. So again, you can do the one we're kind of normally working on, that sense of the kind of wave out, opening, and closing the body. But just feel free to kind of move with it as well. So just bring in all the movements. Let the body kind of roll with it. You've got these kind of classic positions where the hands are working together that we've got. And you've also got other positions, if you think about like 𝘭𝘭𝑚𝑦 or these kind of movements where they're kind of opening, stretching out. But they all, from this idea of basically movement coming from the inside and being expressed out through the periphery, and trying to balance it, balance the tension across the body into the ground. So good. And as you're doing it, just maintain this feeling in the ground. One of the things I like, or one of the words I like, is that the lower body should feel substantial, which is a nice word, substantial. The lower body and the legs should feel like they're really substantial. That's a great word. And the upper body should feel like it's kind of free. So it feels kind of light. I don't want the arms to feel kind of substantial, where they're doing like lots of stuff. You want to feel that the hips in the center are kind of stable on the legs, and that the hands can really express the work of the core of the body, which is what we're always looking for, basically. It never really goes away. So not something you can overtrain. And then just play with moving around the room a little bit, just working with the arms and the legs. And again, don't try and not let the arms to kind of take over and lead. Let the legs lead and just move around. On the extension, work with 𝘏𝑰𝘀𝘪𝘏𝑜𝘪𝘆 work. You think about technique, you can think about just moving. You get kind of stuck with these movements. I always go back to weapon work. So imagine you've got a knife or a sword. Knives are easy because you can basically use two. If you've got like a weapon in the hand, think about really this idea of kind of slicing with it. So all those movements that we make, like 𝘏𝑰𝘀𝘪𝘏𝑜𝘪𝘆 movements, are really weapon work. So it's an expression of the feeling of a weapon in the hands. Yes, yeah. And the other thing, you think it's like all Japanese jiu-jitsu has an assumption that there's weapons involved, right? So a lot of the grabs that we use are actually with the intention that someone's trying to disarm me or control the arm. So the movements that we make, the classic ones, that Nikya movement where you're kind of rolling over and playing with it. So the movements that we make, the assumption is always that somebody's armed. There's always weapons involved. That's classic Japanese jiu-jitsu. There's never a kind of moment where the assumption is that there isn't a weapon in the room or a weapon on the person. So the movements that we make are in a way to escape grip or to control somebody who has the potential to use a weapon. So just worth bearing in mind as you do these kind of movements. Otherwise, it becomes kind of floaty handwork with no purpose. That's great. That's great. Yeah, nice. Yeah, great. And because it's a little bit cold, we'll also just take this into so it's a little bit more dynamic. So again, really involve the lower body with this and think about those kind of moments in taijutsu where you're really kind of rolling into kind of like a low body position, like Kazushi would. Think about kotegaeshi when we do this. Think about making it kind of also a little bit more expansive in the movement. So a little bit exaggerated. That's for instance like kotegaeshi, we've got that huge one. Think about going back into a blend of ikkyo or forward ikkyo, that kind of those kind of deep body positions where I'm kind of drawing the person down to take the balance. Kotegaeshi is a great one. Ikkyo. Iriminage, if you do this big one and this raise up at the top is also a good one. Play with basically letting the body go a little bit lower and going to just challenge that ability to keep that connected body work. And legs are substantial and the arms should feel kind of free on the kind of stable core. So that's great. So let's go into squat work without doing lots of repetition of squatting. Hidden squats and basically Aikido's great for. That's great. Okay, good. We'll go into some bokken work and we'll kind of come back to some taijutsu patterns, but just take it to Suburi, please keep the body going. Okay, so we'll just start nice and easy with the first Suburi. Really reach the back, find the center, and then center of the spine, and cut it. Realize that the settle, especially in the cut or after the cut. Good. Great. So just see if you can take it basically to the normal way you would do the Suburi in this case, like not pausing at the back. So if you think this really is just one movement, which is really where the Suburi is, where we tend to pause at the back for kind of just to kind of teach you guys. So just get the feeling out, you just basically do it as one movement. Now, really allows you to pause at the end of the cut. So allow the cut to settle. And then the key thing is the organization, right? So think about the hip initiating the movement, which releases the foot, which releases the arms. And then the same on the way back, hip, foot, releases the arms. And then hip initiates, and it takes it into the foot. Now the foot needs to go before the hand basically, so the foot's going to kind of reach in to the ground, and then the hands are going to kind of follow it. In a way, there's a kind of order, but the hip initiates it. That's the key thing. Although we start in a way, we sometimes say like starting the feet, the foot doesn't really move first, the hip pulls the foot back, right? So that imagine you're floating in a tank of water. What you want to do is not move the foot, but move the hip to move the foot, right? So if you imagine you're kind of floating around in space, you're going to kind of want to do core initiated movement all the time. But in this case, especially that, but I'm using the ground as the support in this case. And then see if you can keep it as one movement. That's the tricky part, actually. So maintaining the sense of hip motivated movement, again, it's the key part of it. And quite easy to lose now, which is why we're trying a long time pausing at the back. Try and really kind of burn in that organization. It's very easy to kind of lose now, but just notice it and try and fall back into it. Yeah, that's good. Yeah, good. Nice. Okay. That's good. Okay, good, good, good. So there's a couple of things happening which are kind of common things, and it's like why we spend a long time on like precise, slow, static movements, because when we go fast, everything becomes easier to lose. The connection becomes easier to lose. So the first one is just watch this as you go back. The tendency now is to miss the spine, or misalign the spine misalign the sole to the spine. So I'm in a rush to do it, and I kind of do that or that, and look for that. You can really, you don't have to touch the spine in this case, but the important part of the touching the spine is that it's centered on the spine, right? So we touch the spine for that. You don't need to do it, obviously. Later in the system, we don't do it, but just have the sense now as you go. But just allow the sort. Just actually do find the spine. See if you can find the spine in the movement, but a light touch. Now, as soon as you touch it, release it. Touch and release it. Touch and release it. That's it. But notice the difference between touching the shoulder blade around the shoulder. Oh, damn. And if you do it fast, it's a really annoying one. Touch the shoulder, touch the shoulder, touch the shoulder, or touch the spine. And that's the one you're kind of looking for. And you think about tons of techniques. Actually, all the techniques are working in that area. So trying to centralize the cut this, which is the kind of main teaching from the kind of key on all this. In this case, this is a kind of teaching method. That's yeah, good. Yeah, good. And the second thing that happens generally in this case, just watch for, because I'm doing this in motion now, I need to kind of, in a way, it comes back to this idea of like rushing the movement, which is kind of normal. I rush everything all the time. So try and slow this down, but notice there's also a tendency, like my goal is to reach the back. The easier way to do that is to do this with the body, and somehow like try and bring the spine forward or the head forward to try and make that easier, that movement easier. Now, that it will achieve the goal, but it will also break the structure of the body, right? So look for, as you do this, that sense that you can keep the spine actually still free, and especially the head on the spine. So if you imagine the head's basically like floating on the shoulders and the rib cage, what I don't want to do is like pull it off the rib cage. Because if you'll notice, like if you pull the sword, as you pull the sword back, if I pull the head forward, the body automatically goes out of balance. I'm trying to kind of squeeze the body in. So just keep that sense of length, that sense that the head's basically free on top of the body. And we're just going to kind of reach the spine and drop in. But there shouldn't really be much activity going on in the head. Should just basically rested on top of the torso. Great. Okay, perfect. So we'll just use those 2 points. Everything we'll do, we'll kind of focus on those. So go to Zengo, Giri now, cutting front and back. First one, again, just focus on that central end of the spine. So we'll do something that I don't normally do, because it's in a way it kind of slightly breaks the movement, but just play with as you release it, just touching the spine again, and then releasing the foot. Now there's pluses and benefits, there's pluses and minuses to this movement. But the main plus is that it centralizes the body, and it allows me to focus on the footwork where I kind of ground and then I release the front hip. Yeah. So I ground and then I release the front hip. So you're basically doing the first 𝗧𝗪 on both sides with a rotation in between. This makes the movement easier to find the connection. So that's the main plus. The minuses are obviously you're creating a break in the movement, which is not ideal. It's not really where we want to go, but just allows us to that first point, which is just trying to centralize the cut down the spine. Still working in 𝘱𝑰𝘠𝘪𝘐, obviously. So both cuts are going to be straight down the center line. Slightly broken up, pulse at the top, find the back, and then go. Yeah, what I don't like doing this is finding the spine during a rotation is a really awkward position. You can do it, but it's not like it's not the best position to be in terms of body work. But with a rotation work, I think he said that it twists the body up a little bit. That's cool. Just do a few here. Yeah, good. I'll try and show the feet clearly as well. So when you do this, just focus on the compression in the feet. So it's quite easy in a way to do this, and where I'm kind of 50-50 in the feet in a sense, and then I curve, and the front foot doesn't really know what it's doing in this movement. So again, this is just specifically for this exercise, but we expand on it later. It becomes a bit more clear. But allow yourself in this case as you go in. The weight's going to go into that front foot as you rotate it. Yeah, and then allow this foot and this hip to become really supple, right? So you're not in that kind of 50, you don't want to go like 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50, 50-50. The feet start to, the compression pattern gets lost places. So allow yourself to really go like 100%, 50-50, 100%, 50-50, 100%. 50-50. It's quite a tricky thing because that movement will also try and pull me out. So try and really ground in the back foot and then release the hip. Ground the back foot, release the hip. Ground and release the hip. So the easiest way to think about this is just compressing the back foot all the time and then going into balance, going into 50-50. And as you rotate, 100% back foot, 50-50 in the cut. The rotation is actually the tricky part of this. It's movement. So, yeah, good.
This weight shift, Michael,
Yeah.
I think you also need to be very careful that you are not putting the weight before the rotation of your foot.
Yeah, right.
Otherwise, you're turning in your knee instead of.
Yes, right. This is the main problem with any rotation work, right? I'm going to rotate and I'm going to plant my foot and then I'm going to rotate with it. Like you see this all the time, right? If you watch martial arts, well, some martial arts are better at it than others, but if you watch Aikido, especially Aikido, you see planting of the foot and then the weight.
Yeah, and then the rotation.
But the knee just suffering all the time, and then we wonder why there's all these knee problems in Aikido. Now there's extreme versions of it, but we're all doing it all the time as well. It's like I plant the foot and then I try and press weight through. So the idea of this is like you also like set up the rotation right with the foot. I'll set the rotation up so that it's already there, and then when the weight's loaded, I'm trying to keep that alignment. Yeah, it's things like time anchor, all that kind of stuff, but yeah, tricky not to twist the knees. That's why I think it's not a twisting motion, it's a rotation. So which is the whole body rotates rather than twisting the connection. Twisting and rotating.
Basically, if I'm doing this, I'm really shifting from back, because that allows me to rotate my front foot to position it to front foot, so that I can rotate the other foot.
Yes, and this is like, if you think this is the value of being 50-50, right? Yeah. Because this is where this also gets misunderstood, because what you end up then doing is like, I'm not really balanced 50-50. I'm more weighted in the front foot. So now if I need to rotate without twisting the knee, I pull the weight back and then I adjust, right? Which creates an adjustment in the body, right? Before I've moved. So if I'm not really balanced, and we never really are, if I'm not balanced, I'm more in the front, I do this. So the body rocks into the movement, right? Yeah. But if you can get something which is like 50%, then the weight's already here. I just kind of open it out, right? And then I shift the weight over. Now we tend to exaggerate the foot with this thing of like lifting the leg, and we get called out for it. It's true. We do lift the foot too much sometimes. Me especially. But what that does teach us the ability, I shouldn't rock through that movement. So I should be able to raise and send the foot without rocking the body back to do it, right? So yeah, tricky movement patterns. But again, my intention is to have no kind of signal in terms of the movement, just go into the rotation, which sounds easy, but is really difficult. And not kind of rocking the weight, just sinking it in. Which again, like changing my relationship to the ground. That's basically what that's the 𝘱𝘰𝘀𝘀 work. That's what we're doing basically. Serena, hello.
Morning.
Good morning. We're just looking at 𝗧𝗪𝗀𝘀𝗀.
Okay.
Just focus a little bit on compressions in the feet. Okay, stop finding the spine now. So we did that too long. This burns a pattern in which it really is a bad pattern. So just find the top of the head when you do this now. So assume that the sword's centered. We'll assume that it's centered through the spine. Just go find the top of the head and rotate in. Find the top of the head and rotate in. Now the sword's just the front hand's just going to find the kind of the crown of the head. Makes sense. You can have a little bit of space in between it and the sword, but it's basically following that pattern, the parting on the hair, basically, if you had hair, or if I had a parting. Who has a parting? Does anybody have a parting? Yeah. Serena has a parting. Central parting. Yeah, you have a parting. You can use it. We can use Serena. I'm going to spotlight. How do I spotlight? You got a central parting. There we go. There we go. Yeah. That's it.
That was made for all the hours of practice with the boken.
Yeah, right. You've burned it in, right?
And the rest of us can just get a black marker. And
just get a black. Exactly. Yeah, I'm gonna bring a black marker to my next session.
Just draw a line. It doesn't matter.
Permanent marker. Good. That's it. It's really good. Yeah. Okay. Good. Okay, perfect. Yeah. Yeah, right. So there's two things, which is actually why I don't really like that exercise we did before. Now it's in a way sometimes necessary just to kind of feel where the center line is, but it causes, especially if you do it too long, which we did. You don't want to do that exercise really for too long. Just do it as an way for an exercise. What tends to happen now is this: as I go into the rotation, I try and make this one movement, but I do two. And I try and make that one movement. So you actually can't make that one movement. So if you were really good, you could make that one movement, but most of us can't. Multiple people can't. I definitely can't do it. So focus on here, just one movement as you raise the sword up this and allow it to raise up and then enter the drop. Right? Raise up, enter the drop. Now the hard part of that is to try and keep it one movement, but keep it centered. That's the difficult bit. Keeping it centered on the body. It's very easy to make this one movement by doing this and cutting it short and taking it over the side of the body. So try and allow it to travel across that parting line. You're like Moses in the middle of the sea, parting the the ground, everything with the sword, but you don't want to stray out off the.
So sorry, because I just jumped in earlier. What was the purpose? What were you doing before then? Were you finding the spine when you were doing the 𝗧𝗪𝗀𝗀, or?
Yeah, so you can do 𝗧𝗪𝗀𝗀 by basically finding the spine each time, right? So I go here, and I pause, right? And then I initiate the cut. I go here and I pause, yeah, and then I initiate, right? So you can do it that way. And some people do teach it this way. And if you've got beginners or real new beginners, sometimes I will teach that kind of movement. But in this case, just focusing on, that was just to get the focus of like centering the cut basically. That was still working in 𝘱𝘰𝘪𝘀 work rather than like, I'm in these kind of areas. I'm off the body. I'm off the central axis, right?
Oh,
So
I see, okay.
That's the point of that exercise, but
Thank
Like
you.
the first 𝗧𝗪 is one movement rather than like I reach the spine and pause and then go. It's really just one. I just open and close, open and close. And Zengo Giri just adds a rotation to that, opening and closing with a rotation. But it's really basically one motion. The raise and the cut is one. Yeah. No, I can't do it. Yeah. Oh, we got it. Extend the dojo. Okie dokie, great. So we'll go to number 2. Now, number 2 is an exception, which is why this number 2 is 2 movements, right? It's not one movement, it's 2. So it's got a guard position or a kamae in the middle of it, right? So this is coming into Jodan Kamae, which is it's a movement in itself, right? So the pressing of the weight down and the coming into kamae. Yeah, that's the movement, right? And then you initiate a cut. And yeah, you've got a choice in this case. If you can find the spine with the cut, or you can not find the spine. Really, you should have the ability to do either, right? So either way, the cut shouldn't be coming off the center line with this guy in this one. So again, you're still working 𝘱𝘰𝘢𝘵 work. So allow the sword to travel up into the Jodan Kamae. Just settle into that position, and then feel you can initiate it into the 𝘱𝘰𝘢𝘵 work. Yeah, into that step forward. So you can touch the spine or you can not. It's the important thing is whether the sword is centered in the spine, and that starts in the kamae. That kamae is a centered through the spine, basically, with a tricky rotation of the hip or an opening of the hip, which makes that kamae very, very tricky. Isabella, good morning. So great. Okay, just one small point with this. It's a distinction of like how the body works with the sword, right? So notice the difference between like clinging onto the weapon, which in this case is something like this, right? I feel like my weight's basically at the top and hanging off the weapon. Mm-hmm. Just play with this position because it's a really clear. I've got a bar here that I can show you. So it's also the difference between in my bedroom. This horrible. Don't look at this on the wall. Actually, I close. It's the distinction between in like this, holding the body up, and just hanging off. Right now, you want in this case the feeling like you're hanging off the bokken basically, or off the weapon. So that means the body's going to be kind of settled right on the web. Ignore the sweet dreams on the wall. Okay, so just notice the difference between like I'm here and I'm kind of trying to, in a sense, like pull myself up, which looks like this in the body. This kind of position, right, in that sword posture, and the difference between that and just letting the body kind of hang off the weapon. You can make this extreme and like pull the sword really long and feel that the shoulders basically start to kind of release, and the hips should also be free. That's the key point of this. So if you're hanging the structure, the body, the joint system should be free. If I'm clinging on, this is a natural response to try and stop me from falling, right? But I actually want to fall into the ground. That's the whole point of grounding, right? Is to allow the structure to fall into the ground. If I'm clinging, I'm trying to hold myself off the ground. I'm trying to prevent myself from falling because I'm probably at a great height and it's probably a useful skill to have, right? Cling, 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 and hold on, don't fall, right? Like in this case, the ground's right there, so I'm totally safe. Right? The ground's there, and I want to actually be in the ground. So we have one of these hardwired responses to cling, and when the arms go up, the tendency is to cling. Actually, when the arms go up, I want, in this case, in this situation, you want to really drop into the ground, fall into the ground. So once you feel like, I give the body a very clear feeling of that, it's got a clear feeling of that, go into the 𝘠𝗫𝗧 with it as well. So just play with it, the difference between like I bring the arms up and out. The natural tendency is to go into clinging. Try and cling while the arms up. The opposite of that, or it's not even the opposite, it's just another choice, right? Is that I just let the body drain. So the check on this is the feeling, important. It's what the feeling does to the body, right? So if the feeling whether I've got the feeling of hanging, but I'm actually stuck still in the body, or I've actually got the hanging kind, and the body's actually free. The key joint of this is the hip, right? Because we want to initiate the hip. And if the hips are stuck, the arms are going to do the movement, right? Because the arms are the arms will feel free. They'll basically release first because they're fast to release, right? The hips are slow to release. So the hips need to be open all the time, basically. Once I fix the hip, it's really going to be a long or a difficult process to release it. So just think about as you go into it, that the hip is relatively free. It's actually a really tricky position because you're kind of working against this hardwired response, which is cling, arms up, cling. No, arms up, drop in this case. Burning.
Listening to your explanation, and I get a feeling that what we are looking for is not this wavy pattern of settling back and then coming out of it, raise your hip and then drop the hip again.
Yeah, this is a kind of difficult thing. This is something I talked with Adrian about, because if you look at the hips, then they are doing this kind of rising and falling stuff, right?
Yeah.
Because the hip in the end cut is like settling, right?
Yeah.
As I'm back, the hip's settled, but it's settled in a way where I want to move, right?
Yeah.
And then when I'm settling into the cut, I'm settling where I want to settle all the weight in, and then move, and then kind of move from it. So there is, like you say, there is a kind of wave in terms of the hips are raised, and then they're a bit more settled. So that's in the movement, right? But what doesn't raise is the feeling, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And what I also mean is, if you take this 𝘠𝗫𝗫𝗃, so completely up, stretched up, to the ceiling.
Yes.
And then move from this position, which is completely blocked. So this is locked and this is locked.
Yeah.
And now I want to move forward, which is basically impossible to not do this movement.
Yeah.
However, if I look at this like being on a very low ceiling and want to stay underneath the ceiling, my hips need to open up to actually allow this movement in a more straight line. And of course it will settle here again. But it doesn't make this.
Yeah, you're basically, you're not, I call this in a way like you're listing the structure, right? That the structure goes like back and then it's tight, so it does that, right? It topples. Now, that's like falling into the saburi, right? Or falling into the movement, right? And I say if I think if I just watch any, like I was watching the football yesterday, like watch a good player and they're like, there's no resistance to the ground. They're always in the ground, right? Now you get a good football player who's got a really low center of gravity and they're almost impossible to get the ball off them, right? Because they can move with no resistance to the ground. They're not like bobbing up and down. Or I was watching there was a dancer yesterday, but that same idea. It's always there's no people that move well. There's no resistance to the ground, so they're not like listing the structure or trying to hold the structure off. They're just always basically in relationship with the ground, where it's like the body's hugging the ground. Basically, that's the only way I can kind of.
Yeah, would you compare this with when you're pushing a very heavy car, or when you're pushing basically a car? Because then you're actually actively grounding your body, and you don't raise up to push the car because you will only push yourself.
You're pushing yourself, right? But this is I spend a long time in the dojo, like with pushing with people, because people assume they know how to push, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a couple of, so I know how to walk, I know how to push. No, forget about it. But it's the same with, like, if I push a car, so if I'm here, even with the feet in the ground, if I do that, and then push, apply force, the body's I'm pushing against myself, right? So I'm not. It doesn't make sense to push that. But if I mean, people do it when they push cars because they have to. You know, you don't have a choice about it. So you have to ground, and you have to ground, and you have to push from the ground.
Push forward.
I'm going to say I'm creating a connection with the ground to the car, right? And the ground's pushing the car. I'm just in between it, right?
Yeah.
That's always what you want to do. That's always what we're looking for. It's the same ikkyo or whatever. Like I've got the ground. I'm putting the ground between me and the person's arm, and using that to control the person. So then I'm using if I'm not using the ground now, I'm using like localized force, which is just Michael, which is relatively weak in comparison to the ground. Like creating a pathway to the ground is powerful, but really difficult with the sword because we're doing these high positions and all this kind of stuff. So but it's like the same problem all the time.
And you see it with these rugby players as well. When they go into scramble, they will drop completely and move from that position instead of standing upright and then try to scramble because they will be run over.
Now it's like difficult in sword work because we're quite in a high posture, right? We're narrow in the feet, and so it's tricky with sword work to do that. Joe's much easier in a sense to kind of find those kind of things, but that's in a way that's the kind of difficulty with the sword work. That's what makes it kind of interesting in a sense. But yeah, super easy to like this tips are tight, and then I do this. The first thing to go is that the whole body just topples over. So it's that's the kind of interesting part. Okay, we'll just look at number 3. We've not done it in a while, so I'm going to change my bottom because I can't do it with the other one. But just so that's in a kind of cool down as well. So you know the set, just kind of do it in your own time. You've got the raise, drop, breathe in, and find the central axis with the sword. Reach up if you can, really extend fully, and then you do the settling. So the settling now comes in. Really let the breath kind of settle into the body, settle. Open up the hips, find the back. And then you're raising and getting in. Now you've got a really extreme version of this, what we're just talking about. The hips sink, settle, and then they kind of raise, explode out, and then land again. But the feeling stays down all the time. So if you're trying to ground the feeling, ground the body, ground everything, basically, ground the breath. Again, this is all Xiaoman work, so it's trying to let the sword pass through the central axis. Yeah, just one point with this. There's a tendency with this, which is about the gaze, is to do something like this. I've got with my central focus, and I do something like this. So the head as the sword's doing all this stuff is trying to maintain the. Now, if you do this, you'll notice automatically there's a kind of twist through the structure. The body's got an option. It can twist with it this way, or it can try and twist and separate this way. But ideally, you don't want really any of those to happen. So just allow the face, the face to follow the sword. It's going to follow the spine. So rather than twisting it, there's a kind of setup for this. So the head and the neck just follow. It doesn't mean that I lose that contact. So I'm not doing this. That contact's still there, but I'm allowing the spine, the head to follow the spine. This comes up, but I'm not looking that way yet. Now, as you go into this movement, because now I open the hip out to the front, that's when I can bring the head forward, right? So that's when you make the contact here forward fully, right? Because at that point, that's where the spine's going to start to burden and the hips are going to adapt for the position, right? And then you keep that, you come up and you cut with it this way. But that first movement, the first raise, allow the head to basically follow the spine. The tricky bit is like you're using the peripheral vision to maintain that contact forward, but you're not directly looking at it because that's going to distort the structure. And the best is just play with it. Feel the difference between kind of trying to look at the same time as twisting, but in the same time as bringing the spine back. Nice. Good. Just one point before we finish. I'll say 30 seconds. This movement always gets confused with like holding the breath. Like, what am I doing? Why am I holding the breath in this position? Think you're at maximum tension, right? If I breathe within the movement, watch this. If I breathe as I do, I'm trying to hold the bow and I try and do something with the bow. So at maximum tension, any movement at maximum tension, in this case, the sword's here or the sword's here at maximum tension, with the bow's really obvious. Maximum tension, I need to be really calm. Yeah. So the breath doesn't, it's not that I'm holding the breath, it's that I'm settling the breath, which is, again, it's a different idea of how I'm holding what I'm doing, right? What I'm thinking about what I'm doing. So maximum tension, I let the breath settle. I need to be calm in that movement, because if I'm breathing, everything's going to start to move. And especially with a bow like this, which is quite a strong bow and I'm not used to pulling it, you'll get all these, and the bow, you won't be able to hold it, right? You won't be able to hold the structure. So just, we'll stop there. We'll look at this again tomorrow, but just notice that there's a difference between kind of holding the breath and just letting the breath settle. I'm not doing anything with it, right? So just something to look for. Okay, great. We will bow up. Great. Domo arigato gozaimasu.
Domo.
Arigatou gozaimashita.
Great. Okay, we'll continue this tomorrow.
I'm gonna get a side parting now.
You've got a side parting, no?
Yeah, ish. It's not
Make
so
it deeper.